Hey all, I apologize for the delay. I meant to kick this video out a few days ago. I forgot. And so I would just like to say that this video is about difference and how it can get you in trouble. A real quick illustrative story. I had a very small job for a week as a part-time assistant baker at a local bakery. And here in the North Shore of Massachusetts. And if the people watching this ever see, they'll understand. There was a lot of miscommunication from the word go, from the ad they placed to what they wanted. I hate to say this, most of the blame is on them. Most of the responsibility is on them, not most of the blame. Most of the responsibility is on them, the owners, because it's their shop. They were the ones wanting to run it. The owners of a restaurant or any food service or any company have to be responsible for any mistakes that are made, because people can act in good faith or make mistakes in error of what they're told, and it won't be right anyway. So I got this job, and it was not well described. I figured I'd be a grunt, a gopher, and whatnot, and use the limited experience I have. Was 2.5 miles away over some hills, and I was going to bike to work. It wasn't great. Did a stage day. Everything seemed to go really good. They did things that were not normal, but everyone has their quirks. Okay, great. And the reason why miscommunication happened was because I didn't know I had to sufficiently explain myself. I'm in the North Shore of Boston, Massachusetts. That means that if you look at Logan Airport, I live above it, and it's very white. It's only 12.5 miles from downtown Boston, and it's very much trying to be a small town and do that, blinders and rose-colored glasses on. It's very white, very Italian, very Catholic. And I didn't realize this. I didn't realize how very small town this place is. And both these two people, well, one of them, I don't know if she is from this area, but the other one, the main baker, the co-owner, is from this area. And I didn't realize she would have slipped into the habits of this. I should have. I didn't. I'm from the West Coast. 12.5 miles away is no different. But I'm dealing with an area of the world in which you've got a state like Rhode Island, which might be 50 miles across. So people get very neighborhood-esque, and I forgot that. And I also made an assumption, miscommunication, in which I assume that if I give you a resume and you say you read it, that you read all of it, and that you understood what you read. This turned out not to be the case. They had not read my entire resume. They did not understand what many of what I said on it meant, like, for example, what a consultant is and what it means for tax purposes and for the employer-employee relationship. Nor did they understand what couriers are like, nor did they understand what is expected from a person coming in from outside of baking to a baker shop. See, in my experience, bakers are very, very precise. But I dealt with pastry people who also made bread. Not bread people. Now, the bread person is very, very precise, but at least the head baker was used to doing everything herself, was not used to explaining it. Now, I also had some miscommunication errors because I did not establish up front how old the owners were. And one was in her, sorry, this is a timer for something on the stove. It's not a big deal. She's reminding me to turn off some boiling water, but there's nothing in it. The owner was in her early 20s. The other co-owner was in her late 20s. And these two girls together opened up a bakery here, and they make very good bread, but it's very focused. They're very good at bread and not much else, and they don't have that experience of general pastry work or general chefing work. They make bread, and that's all that they're very good at, and they're very good at. We have this bread, and I'm not going to be working there anymore. And I've told them flat out they need to succeed. They need to sort of step outside of their own boundaries to succeed. But there was a lot of miscommunication. Give you a good example. I was told by one of the owners that she wanted 280 pieces of butter. What she meant to say was, I want a 280-gram piece of butter, or 280 grams of butter. What she said was, can you get me 280 piece of butter? I heard pieces. And 280, to me, the way she said it was, there's a break, 280. And it didn't communicate, so I made 280-gram pieces, and I left it alone for an hour, like where she wanted it, and all of a sudden there was great upsetness. She took it personally. The baker went, hey, it was just miscommunication. They put me on a 1099 form, which is a tax form in the U.S. for independent contractors and not employees, which is a W-2 and W-4. And I therefore treated the whole, they said, oh, well, we'll change it in the beginning of the year. Well, promises are nice, but that does mean that for October, November, and December, 3 months, I would be an independent contractor, which means that I would be treating them as my client. And they didn't quite understand what that meant for the employer-employee relationship, and basically it doesn't exist. It's a client-contractor relationship, which is different, and it is subtly different, but basically it means that as a contractor, I get to negotiate pay, I get to write off pay, and I get to negotiate my hours, I get to negotiate when I get to come in, I get to negotiate what exactly is going on. See, a contractor is, you can't say to a contractor, okay, well, you're really, a lot of people try to do this. They try to say, you're an employee, but I'm going to write you up as a contractor. Now come here 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I'm only going to pay you $12 an hour, and they think that they can just get away with writing 1099 because they want to, like it's optional. Well, it's not. It changes how things go. One of the things that you have to have is you have to have that negotiation of hours, that negotiation, a constant negotiation of hours, duties and whatnot. And they also didn't understand that by paying me $11 an hour, I was suffering a 35% tax rate, and that could therefore mean that I was making about $6.80 something an hour. There was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of miscommunication. What they wanted from me was somebody who knew how to bake and who could move really, really fast, and wasn't going to talk, and wasn't going to judge anything they did, and was going to work happily for $11 an hour and work part-time and not know about 1099. What they wanted was this idea. They had this fantasy, this idea of what this employee they wanted was, but the reality is very, very different. They have somebody who works front of house who's very bad at it. I've talked to some people. She's a cook in another restaurant, and she's very, very bad at front of house. She doesn't talk to people. She doesn't really greet them as they come in. She doesn't have a professional speaking voice. She doesn't move with any alacrity. She does not understand prices. She doesn't remember anything. And they've only been a month open. So that is some excusable, but there is not this skill set. My wife mentioned to me that having talked to these people, that I, and Aspie, your host, am a better front of house person than theirs. I mentioned that I've actually run a store. I used to run a retail store a long time ago, and she went, well, there you have it. But I came in saying, hey, I have all this experience. This is who I am. I went to a culinary school back in the day, and I know my shit. And they went, oh, okay, and they didn't listen to any of it. They told me exactly who they were, which was 2 young girls who really wanted to open a shop in their hometown so they wouldn't have to do any of the really hard work that it takes to actually get a shop going, like advertising, knowing your product, knowing your community, and how it interacts with your community, and being okay with that. And they told me all of this, and I didn't listen. They also told me subtly, and I know Aspies don't deal with subtle, that they don't want people to be different than them. Now, how does this topic, how difference can create problems? Several of the complaints about me included my accent, my lexicon, my taking charge, um, my talking to customers, all right, my quote, not listening to them, which was they would say something to me and I go, okay, you know, I thought that was the end of it. They would tell me something, I go, okay, and then it happened. And in fact, they said, well, you didn't acknowledge the way I wanted you to. And I said, but did it happen the way you wanted to? You give me instruction. Please do X. Okay, and thing happens. I said, you gave me instruction. I may not acknowledge it how you wanted it to, but did it happen how you wanted it to? Well, yes, but you didn't acknowledge it how I wanted it to. I wanted you to. So there was that miscommunication. Now, the reason why I don't have the job and why I agree that I shouldn't have the job was that the head baker went, hey, I've had head trauma too, and you are not ready. And I don't think you're physically ready, and I don't think you're mentally ready. I don't know if she's right or not. But the point is, she's the head baker, and if she's had this experience and she's looking over and she's worried about me and she's got to keep one eye on me, she's not going to be a very good baker. And that means I'm a distraction, and that means I shouldn't be there. So the truth is, I shouldn't be working at this bread shop for many more reasons than I don't fit in. I don't want them to be making them losing money because they have to, look out for me. That's whatever. It's fine. But the miscommunication was I didn't properly tell them who I was, and they didn't properly tell me they didn't want me to be who I was. So when miscommunication leads is to be honest about who you are, to be honest about what you want, and to be honest about where you expect everything to go. And even if you come into a job, I should have on the first day when they said you're going to be a 1099 employee, told them that was not good enough, or that if they wanted me to be a 1099 employee, I was going to have to be making 60% more than they were paying me at the very minimum. I was also going to need to negotiate hours to be in the afternoon, not the morning, because I had other responsibilities to my company. And I should have been more honest with them. I should have communicated my needs as a 1099 employee better, or my needs as a W-2 employee. Like, for example, when I got hired, they said, we will have you start between 7 and 10, and we don't know yet. We're going to try 8 a.m. and see how that goes. And then 8 a.m. wasn't working. I said, I was about to say, I need to move it later in the day. We're like, well, we want you to move earlier in the day. And there was no, is that okay? It was, this is going to happen or you lose your job. And I should have said, I'm a 1099 employee. This is not how that happens. Here are the legal rules governing 1099 employees, so I'm going to take that. I should have been more upfront. They should have been more upfront. Neither of us was. And now I don't have a job. That's sort of the basis. Be honest with what you want, who you are, and what you need. Make sure the other person is being honest with what they want, who they are, and what they need. Especially in any kind of job situation or informal contract situation like employment, at-will employment. Make sure everyone's on the same board. And then say again, and then at the end of the negotiation, restate what everyone believes to be true. Get everyone to agree on that. And if possible, get it in writing. And if not, at least reiterate it over and over and over, so that if any changes need to be made, they can be made and everyone's on the same page. Have a good day.